Welcome back to another episode of the Take Your Shot podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about ads, and I thought who better to bring on than Melissa Litchfield. So, Melissa, welcome aboard. Do you mind telling everyone a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yes, of course. Thanks so much again for having me on your podcast. And it was nice to meet you in person last month at the Dipsato event. So this is so exciting. I get to be on your podcast now. But yeah, a little bit about me. So I do run a done for you ad agency, and we specialize in helping entrepreneurs and online coaches in the space. And we obviously have a software company as a client. So I kind of feel like we've dabbled into like different industries and niches, but by far, like our bread and butter is helping online coaches and course screeners basically launch their digital product, get it out there, whether it's validating or launching it for like the sixth time. We've pretty much done it all. But that's pretty much like our bread and butter. We've been in business for almost 7 years. I think next month will be our seventh year. So that's crazy for me to think. We have a very small team. And yeah, I've basically been running it since 2019. So it's kind of crazy. 2020 business blew up. Now we're still here. We're still kicking. And so I love meeting other entrepreneurs and just speaking about ads and talking about what's working and basically talking about the misconceptions, which I know we're gonna touch base on those today.
And I love that because I feel like there are so many misconceptions about ads, especially with like what you're seeing, because obviously you're the expert. You've been doing this for 7 years. You've been doing this kind of like pre-pandemic, now during the pandemic, now we're in that post-pandemic state. So I'm sure you've seen just how much the online space has really like changed over the years. And so I would love to hear, yeah, what are you seeing in terms of like misconceptions that you think are kind of like the biggest roadblocks for people when it comes to even thinking about doing ads?
Mhm. I feel like ads are kind of even more important now, especially with the landscape of Instagram. It's so unpredictable. And I felt like Instagram has kind of like, it rode this high, right? Like in 2020, 2021, 2022, I felt like where I was even getting great reach back then. And I was able to, remember when reels were like brand new, right? Create a reel, put it out there, and it would sometimes like gain some traction. Now it's like I feel like I'm personally stuck at this like 1,000 view count. So me personally, I've just kind of been dabbling in other platforms. So basically like Threads is like my go-to. But I always feel like ads is kind of like that one piece or the tool. I always call it like it's a tool or resource, right? To grow your business. It's not something that's going to do anything magic, right? But it's not gonna magically create sales or magically bring clients to your business. There does have to be some foundational work there. But I do feel like, especially in this landscape today, having ads as another piece or like resource or tool to just make sure that you're getting seen, right? Because I feel like we're creating all of this content right now on social media and it just kind of like dies, right? So ads is kind of just helpful to whether you're doing like top of funnel, just like engagement based ads, right? Where you're just like wanting to get more shares, saves, likes, but also getting them to your website, right? I think that's super important, right? Because like social media is just one piece of the pie. We need to get them to go off of social media in order to learn more about our business, maybe fill out our inquiry form, or maybe download like a lead bank, which we're going to chat about today.
I love that topic of the lead magnet because that's truly how you get them to like be an audience that you own versus I always view social media as kind of this like rented space, right? Like you're kind of victim to whatever the algorithm decides. And I know you were talking about that a lot lately of like there's just so many shifts in the last couple of years from when reels used to take off. Like I actually like saw a ton of growth through reels. Like I was posting
Hmm.
reels almost every day for like a period. And that was a huge thing for us to get visibility and like grow our audience online. But then nowadays it's like, even if you have an audience, it's just like, oh man, like sometimes it's like, did I do something wrong? Am I getting punished by the algorithm? So I
Right,
think that that's
right.
like really important. So I love that. And just like the ability that you can own your audience, especially through lead magnets. So I think I would love to talk a little about that because you want to like maybe give a brief overview of kind of like what a funnel like typically looks like and kind of like where the lead magnet falls in that for people who maybe don't know or have a funnel.
Yeah, yeah. I took this like Bath and Body Works example. It's kind of like I think it's a good just example of like what it would look like in everyday life. So if you've ever been to a Bath and Body Works store, right? And I think most of us have. I think probably a majority of your audience is probably millennial. But Bath and Body Works, it is a physical store location, right? And as you're walking through the mall, if it's outdoor, indoor, there's usually some sort of like crazy signage or like marketing promotion that they've got in front of their store. So I like to think of that as our landing page, right? So the the marketing, just like whatever they're promoting, if they've got store signage up in the windows, that's kind of like our landing page. And in order to draw people in, we have to have the right messaging, right? We want to make sure that we're actually promoting something in terms of a lead magnet that is going to entice them to come into our store, enter our funnel, aka enter our funnel. So that's pretty much like our top of funnel, right? That's our landing page. That's how we're going to attract and bring in the most ideal client. And as they enter the Bath and Body Works store, that's kind of like your potential lead, your potential client, basically getting nurtured and entering your funnel. So like they kind of have to say yes before they even enter. So think of your landing page like they actually have to want what you're offering or have some sort of purpose or need for it. So that's why it's crucial. And we'll probably touch on this later about making sure that we are creating a lead magnet that people actually want. But once they enter your store, aka your funnel, and as you like envision, okay, what would that kind of look like in terms of a Bath and Body Works store? You're probably smelling different things. You're trying on different lotions. You're smelling the 3 wick candles, right? Maybe they have a sale on them. And maybe you get approached by somebody throughout the store, right? Usually like a store representative or something that's trying to like help you find out what you need. So by the time you get to the back of the store, that's usually where like the cash wrap is or the register, right, to check out. So I think of that as like bottom of funnel. So like middle of funnel is like when you're smelling all the things, you're trying the lotions, maybe you get approached by somebody that works there and they're trying to help you figure out what you need. By the time you get to the bottom of funnel, which is the cash wrap area, you're ready to like hand over your credit card and pay. And maybe there's little trinkets there, like the little antibacterial sanitizers. I think of those as like order bumps or like little things that you can add to cart. So that essentially is, in a nutshell, is my Bath and Body Works funnel example. But by the time you get to the back of the store, that's like bottom of funnel, you're ready to hand over your credit card. So that's the acquisition phase, right? That's when we actually close the sale or get them to take action. So essentially, that's the funnel.
I love that so much, and I think, it can be really easy to overthink what a funnel is and overthink your lead magnets, and I know for you, you're someone who's worked with so many different creative business owners. I'd love to hear, and, like, maybe we can just dive into, like, kinda what works, what doesn't work. So, like, what would you say are some of the biggest mistakes you're seeing when it comes to trying to build an audience with, let's start with, like, the lead magnets?
Yeah. Number one mistake is kind of just having like a very vague title, right? Where and essentially that's usually the very first top section, like the header section of your landing page is the title of your lead magnet, right? Or maybe it's like the header that you're trying to, entice them with to actually opt in. So having it be too vague or too clever could be like a really big mistake, especially if it's confusing, right? Usually if it's too vague, then they're already confused. Like, I don't really know what I'm getting here. So an example I have is like the ultimate guide to like thriving online. Well, like what's the end transformation of that, right? I don't even really know what that is. And you have to kind of think like, is this something that people are searching for online,
Hmm.
right? So sometimes there is some sort of research process involved. And I think the more that you start working with, clients one on one or just talking to people, right? Doing some market research, you'll get to see some trends and you'll start to like think like, okay, I see that this specific problem is something that people are looking to solve, right? And you can just do like simple Google search to see what common themes people are asking about. You can even go on Reddit to like see, like, okay, like what people are really like searching for in terms of like my audience or my niche. So I would say that's like the first mistake, right? Like just going so vague. It's not super clear what you offer or what you're trying to solve, or even just like the mini transformation, right? Like a lead magnet should ideally solve a very specific problem. And I'll just talk about mine for example, because prior to changing my lead magnet at the end of last year, I just felt like I was offering so many things, right? I was trying to just solve like a bunch of problems in one lead magnet. And I really truly felt like people were not even consuming the content, right? Like I gave them a spreadsheet of vetted audiences and I gave them like a couple videos on how to create audiences, custom audiences in Ads Manager. But wanted to kind of back it up. And I'm like, what's the first thing that they have to do, right? When they get into Ads Manager, they actually have to set up the business portfolio and connect all the assets. And I was like, I don't even think that's something that most people know how to do, right? So I just revamped my lead magnet and I just made it that one specific thing. And it actually is converting really, really well. And one thing we can chat about too is the landing page conversion rate is a usually really good sign to know if it's actually converting well, right? If it's something that people actually are enticed to enter their name and email for. So the way to solve that or to figure it out is to hopefully you're tracking page views. So hopefully you have like some sort of Google Analytics on the page, but you want to take the total number of leads, let's just say in the past 30 to 90 days that you've seen opt into the lead magnet, divided by the total amount of landing page views that you've seen from that specific page. Times that by 100, you'll get a percentage. If it's below 25%, usually means that you need some work to do, right? There's some optimization that you can actually do on the landing page. So maybe that's changing up the headline, or in my case, it was totally revamping the lead magnet itself. Even though it converted great, you want to make sure that people are actually downloading it and consuming, the product. It doesn't necessarily have to be a product, but the free thing. So yeah, that's like one way to make sure that it's actually converting. I want to say the second mistake is probably having some sort of lead magnet that it hasn't actually connected to what you sell, right? So I've seen some people create this free thing, but then it doesn't align or relate to any of the services that they offer, right? They kind of like are creating something that they think their audience wants. So that could be another mistake too, where you're just like, maybe you are creating like something around stories that sell, but like you don't actually have a service that offers that as an example. So yeah. And then the third mistake is not having a follow-up sequence, right? So after they download the thing, like, do you just ghost them? What's happening after that? Are we nurturing them? So there should be some sort of automated email sequence that's delivering emails on your behalf in some sort of cadence, right? So that's what we call like an email sequence. So yeah, those are like the top 3 mistakes though.
And I feel like that's really good just to like lay out so people can kind of see the different areas where it's like easy to get tripped up. And I think maybe what you see too, and maybe you can answer this, is like, do you feel like sometimes it's like either too much or too little in some of those things? So, for example, you said, okay, you were putting out this lead magnet and it was just like so much that people weren't consuming it. I guess for the landing page, for the offer itself, for the follow up sequence, what would you say is a good way to know how much or how little you should be having for each of those like parts of the funnel?
Okay, so in terms of the landing page, I mean, it's usually fairly simple. It doesn't have to be super long like your traditional sales page, but I think the most important part is to be super clear on what they get, right? So a really strong headline that like speaks to exactly what problem you're solving or the transformation they can expect from the lead magnet. But then the next section should go into exactly like what is it? What does it entail? If you have a mock-up of the said thing, that's even better because I feel like it makes it more tangible to be like, oh, this is what I'm gonna get, right? Versus like there's nothing, visually there to like kind of see like what it actually is. And then some social proof. That's also helpful too, to like know that, oh, other people have downloaded this thing and have seen some sort of results. And then I would say the next important section on your landing page should be like an about me section, right? It doesn't have to be like this whole long story, but it should basically showcase your expertise, your knowledge, how many people you've helped, achieve X, Y, and Z. That just gives some credibility to you as a business owner and what you do, because again, we are sending cold traffic to this landing page. So we want to make sure that like, hey, you know what you're talking about sort of thing, right? So that's the landing page piece. For the actual email sequence, I don't want to say like, oh, this is like a hard and stop, like fact, like you need X amount of emails, but I would say start it out with at least 6 to 7 and then start tracking like email open rates and click-through rates, right? Like you want to at least that first email where you deliver the product should be an open rate of like 50%, right? Because that's like the first one that they get, you want to make sure that they're actually consuming it and downloading the thing. So that's where you look at click through rate too. Oh, okay, they're opening the email, one. But then two, the second piece is, okay, they're actually downloading the thing or they're clicking on the button to access the thing. And then I would just, watch those metrics. And if you see that like the open rate is like dropping, maybe that means, lessen up the amount of emails, right? But I like to make sure that if my clients have some sort of email sequence where we're nurturing new people into their world, that we are highlighting testimonials, right? So we're sprinkling that in, we're storytelling throughout the email sequence. But at the very end, we should be driving them to do something, right? Maybe that's like a free masterclass that you have, or if you're a service provider, maybe that's like getting them on a call, right? Hey, let's take this a step further and let's actually like solve the issue that you have and let's chat to see if it's a good fit sort of thing.
I really like how you laid that out because I think so often people maybe get a little nervous. Like when I hear you say, okay, at least 6 to 7, I'm like, oh man, like I don't think I have that many on my nurture sequence. So I think it's really good just to kind of get an idea of, okay, for some, it might push you a little bit to do more. And for others, it might be like, okay, I mean, maybe I need to do less and like keep it a lot more simple. So I think that that's really just a good overview of what that could look like.
Yeah, yeah. And again, it doesn't need to be like 6 or 7, but like if your current sequence has maybe 3 emails and you're not seeing anybody but calls with you, that may be a sign that like, okay, they don't really know enough yet about you or the services that you offer. So maybe a little bit more nurturing is needed, AKA a few more emails.
Totally. I'd love to kind of wind it back a little bit too and just talk a little bit about knowing your audience and kind of what you should offer. I know you kind of talked a little bit about like your services and having something that kind of or products and having something that kind of like ties back to that. But for someone who maybe is like, okay, I feel like I don't even know where to start, like how do you recommend figuring out your best like lead magnet or your best idea and how to pull from that?
Yeah. So kind of what we were chatting about earlier, like doing some like market research. And that could just be like, again, going on Reddit, like seeing what people are chatting about, what are their main issues. Basically going back to like what industry or niche that you're serving. I'll just use me as an example since that's easy for me to chat about. But I feel like the best market research is getting like people on a call, right? Interviewing them, and especially the newbies, right? The newbies that are new to ads. I tend to get the best sort of market research by just asking questions or even like in my emails, right? That are going out to my list. I get some really good feedback. And sometimes that's just like for me, simple breakdown of like the numbers. Like people eat up the numbers a lot. So like, let's say I take like a budget of 10K and I break it down on like how I would use 10K in ad spend in order to hit, say, 6 figures in your next launch. When people see the breakdown of those numbers, they're like, wow, like that actually like makes a lot of sense. So it just gives you some more insight of like what people are truly like wondering, like how to figure it out or, how to solve a specific issue. I will say for service providers, I think if you're getting stuck and trying to figure out like, okay, what do I, say if like for photographers, right? What am I gonna offer? What am I gonna entice them with? The best example would probably just to be a case study, right? To storytell, take one of like your best clients and walk them through how basically provided them with a spectacular day at their on their wedding. Talk about like how you basically take them from inquiry to booked, right? And then it's helpful also to collect those testimonials from past clients too. So I do think like case studies, especially for service providers, that is one of the best lead magnets is because you get to showcase exactly how you do it and the results of like your service. And it's great to like, basically showcase like I actually like know what I'm talking about and I can provide results.
Totally. And people really want things tied back to results or success stories. I mean, that's kind of what sells people is seeing someone else's success. They don't want to buy from someone who just like is super salesy. They want to buy from someone who's like, hey, this is how it's going to help you and kind of have that like service front facing story for them to be able to put themselves in that shoe and like, yep, that's how it's going to be. And that really resonates with like where I want to go. So
Yeah. And even just, I'm thinking back to that story you told me in the car when we were in the car together. I think it was after getting coffee, but just that, like, the little things that you and your husband do that makes you guys unique and different. Like I was like, wow, that is something I've never heard of before. And two, that makes you like unique and sets you apart from everybody else. And I feel like that is something that service providers should highlight in their email sequence.
Totally. I would love to talk a little bit about just kind of that like beginning stage of someone who maybe they've got their lead magnet, but they've never run ads before. How do they know if they're ready to run ads and how should they kind of navigate like testing that?
Yeah, so I would say there's two different paths, right? There's a path where it doesn't really matter if you don't have like a huge budget and you just want to test like getting your posts like out there to people that already follow you. And that's like 5 to 10 bucks a day, right? That's like your ultimate goal or objective, I should say, in ads language is just getting the shares of likes, the more profile visits, right? Like you're just trying to get more people to come to like your profile. And then there's another path for, I would say, more serious people, right? Like people that have been in business for several years. They've proven that, what they provide to others is actually it's working and you are already getting sales and you just want to enhance that with ads, right? So that's like amplifying the results that's already there. It's like amplifying the foundation that's already set and you're ready to spend like 500, 1,000 bucks within like 30 days. So that's kind of like two different paths, I should say, because yeah, you can spend 5 to 10 bucks a day on just simple, an objective campaign where you're just optimizing for more engagement. But then there's another path you can take that's a little bit more serious. You've proven some things already. So I felt like that is like a good, just like standard to just realize like, okay, you've already had the foundation set. You've already have the website that probably converts on its own. So to me, that's like good indication that like, hey, you're probably ready for ads. Like you're ready to kick it up a notch.
Got it. So really just tracking your traffic, seeing if it's already converting and then just amplifying that out once you kind of have a good rate.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say the biggest mistake is kind of just thinking that ads are going to fix the sales issue when there's already a sales issue. And it's like, no, that's just going to amplify the issue. The right even more so. So yeah.
And then let's say someone is like, okay, I think I'm ready to do this. What would you say would be your best advice for actually like getting started? Whether that's like different mindset shifts or practical things that they can be doing. How would you recommend them starting to approach like that ads?
I would definitely say at least like hire somebody that knows what they're talking about, right? Unless you've already dabbled into ads and you're like, okay, I think I'm ready again to take a stab at it because and I saw somebody say this on Threads last week, but ads managers are not intuitive, right? And so like it can be frustrating and it's super easy to just waste money, right? Blow money on an ad campaign that you set up because I think most people just forget to even check it and just setting it up correctly and just to get tracking working, really want to lean on some expertise there. So even it doesn't have to be like a done for you agency, right? But it could just be hiring somebody for like an hour. Just be like, hey, can you help me set up some tracking like before I start running ads? Just leaning on an expert, I feel like would pay off like tenfold.
I love that so much. And I feel like that's like super helpful, especially for people who are just really wanting to learn more about this. And so I would say too, there are a lot of people who have tried ads before and maybe they've got this like bad taste in their mouth. It didn't go necessarily as well as they were hoping. What are some of the things that you would say for people who've maybe tried them and say, no, ads aren't for me, they don't work?
Right. And this kind of goes back to what we were just talking about, like hiring an expert. I do feel like if you tried ads and you got like crappy results, I'm hoping you didn't hire somebody off Fiverr. Right. Because they probably just set up like a traffic campaign. And I feel like that's like a common default, right? Where it's like the first objective that people pick and not knowing which objective, obviously, if you have an expert, they'll help guide you. But a lot of people default to a traffic campaign. And I feel like if you probably did that yourself and realize that, okay, ads didn't work, what Meta does is they see the traffic objective as, oh, we just need to get more people to click, right? Not necessarily click through and land on the page. So what you were really telling Meta to do was, hey, go find more people that will click on this link. So changing the objective to an actual conversion, say like a lead or a purchase, is one, yes, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but you're going to get an actual like solid person opting in, right? Like a solid lead. And then you'll be able to see, okay, are these actual quality leads? You know, you can take a peek at the emails. But I do feel like if someone was running ads before and they just didn't see results, most likely they did something wrong in the setup, right? Either it was the wrong objective, not enough budget, or they didn't have tracking set up. So they were like, wow, it's spending all this money, but I don't even know what it's doing. So I would say just try it one more time, hire an expert. Like I was saying before, even if it's just for an hour to just kind of like walk you through the dashboard, show you like what the buttons mean and where to click, it's probably going to make you feel a lot more at ease with the platform itself.
Totally. And I feel like it can be this really daunting task, especially because I mean, I've been on the other side of it. I've looked at like just even trying to set it up. And honestly, that has scared me from even just wanting to like pour a lot of money into something that I don't understand. I think there's a lot of risk with that. So I love how you're saying don't pour money into something you don't understand. Like get someone to help you and like actually make sure that you're doing this right. Because ultimately too, when you've seen it and you work with people and you obviously help them with this, it's like when you set it up correctly, the results can be really life changing. I mean, do you have any stories of times where you've really seen people who were able to like just be completely impacted from just having this done the right way? Like, what are you seeing in terms of like conversions? Like people getting like, okay, if for every dollar they're putting into ads, they're getting X amount back. Like any sort of like really cool mindset shifts you've seen people have and like aha moments for your clients that you've worked with?
Yeah, well, so many. I'll tell you about a recent one that I was helping an ad traffic school member. She was actually a part of my membership, but like she had like canceled. But she reached out to me on Instagram. She's like, "Can you help me figure this out?" And when I looked at her landing page, she had the lead event on the actual landing page. When in reality, you want that on the thank you page. And there were just some extra barriers to getting people to opt in that I was like, "Hey, let's like actually embed this form on the page." And then I was able to test it for her. And then I set up a custom conversion. What was actually happening was that her actual lead count and like the cost per result of that lead was inflated because the lead objective was on the landing page. So like Meta was thinking, oh, everyone that lands on this page is in lead. So it was just looking like she was having, 4-cent leads when really that wasn't the case. And she said she hired all these people off Fiverr, and I was like, "Girl, you just need to get back in the membership." But I was able to figure it out for her, and she was so pleased, and she was like, "Oh my god, like, this was, like, life-changing just having you come into my ad account again and just take a look at things." So, I think sometimes it's just super helpful to just have somebody in, like, your back corner, just knowing that, like, you have them to lean on. Just so, like, "Hey, can you take a peek at this campaign? I set it up, like, I don't know what's going on. Like it's saying I have 400 leads, but like I probably have like 20, in my email marketing software." So
I love that. And I think too, it just goes to show when you set it up right the first time, like it'll save you time. It'll probably in the long run get a better ROI. So then in that term, like save you money. I know we talked a little bit about like whether or not someone is ready. I'd say finances obviously have something to do with that in terms of like being able to invest kind of upfront. What would you say you would recommend for someone for that initial investment? And then you can feel free to talk about like what you offer too, but like in terms of having the ad budget, but also the support with that, what would you say someone should probably have on hand if they're like thinking seriously about really hitting the ground running with ads?
yeah, anywhere from 500 to 1,000 to test. And sometimes if we're testing like a brand new offer, I like to do it within a week to really just like, let's not waste time, right? Like, let's spend the money in a week. Let's get some solid data back. And then we'll know like what we need to fix or adjust from there. We'll be able to see like the lead quality as well. And my clients are usually pretty good about deciphering like, hey, like they can tell like from one email to another, like if it's spam or like if it's good, right? But especially in the wedding space, I feel like you can tell like if somebody is an actual like wedding vendor just by their email. So yeah.
Totally. And I think that's really helpful. So, yeah, I think for this conversation, like obviously there's a lot that someone would have to consider in terms of if they're ready for ads and when to start and how to do that. For someone who's thinking, man, this was really inspiring and I think I want to hit the ground running, what are some like small tangible steps that they can start taking to really start moving with this?
Yeah, well, it depends if you want to DIY it. But I would say just start to get familiar with like the Meta Business Portfolio. I mean, there's tons of stuff you can Google and probably YouTube, but getting that set up first and then linking all your assets, right? So like setting up an ad account, that's pretty easy. I think is pretty like intuitive to set that up. But also linking your Facebook page. And unfortunately, you do need a Facebook page. It doesn't need to be active. You don't even need to post on it really. It's really just like somewhere that traffic needs to go, but you can also take that off in terms of ad placement and also linking your Instagram. And really what that looks like on the back end is just you're logging in, right? You're logging into your Instagram account and then it's going to be in your business portfolio as an asset. And you can use that asset to then, obviously run ads. And then you want to set up your pixel. So it's a start there. That's going to give you a solid foundation to that way when you're ready to go into Ads Manager and start creating all the things, everything will already be set up and like linked and good to go.
So good. So good. And I feel like this has just been so helpful. Honestly, such a wealth of knowledge. And I'm sure people are like, wow, there's so much to do with all of this. Do you mind talking a little bit more though for people who are like, okay, yeah, Melissa's a real deal. I want to learn more from her. What types of things do you have to offer and where can they find you?
Yeah. Okay. So I am on Instagram and Threads. My handle is Litchfield Media on both of those. I do have a freebie. It's called Roadworthy in 48 Hours. The goal is to help you get up your meta business portfolio set up the right way. There's several tutorials linked in that, and that's completely free. And if you're ready to step it up a notch, let's say you have a lead magnet like we discussed today, and you're like, okay, I'm ready to start growing my email list, right? Move off of social media. Again, it's like rented land over there. If you're ready to step it up a notch and start growing your email list with qualified leads, I'm running a live challenge April 13th. So that whole week, you'll get access to me in a Slack workspace so you can ask me all the questions. There's even an option to add me to your ad account. So kind of like get some VIP support where I physically go in and I can verify your ad campaign setup. I can verify your tracking. But that whole week, the goal is to get you live with the lead gen ad campaign. So yeah, that's $97 and that's happening mid-April.
I love that. That's so good. So yeah, we'll have everything linked below. So if you're listening and you're like, yep, Melissa's it. I need to learn from her. She's got so much to share. Seriously, go binge her Instagram, look at everything she's posting on Threads. There's so much that you can learn just from following her there. But seriously, so good. So Melissa, thank you so much for just everything you shared today. And for everyone listening, we'll see you next week.